Good evening, good evening, good evening. My apologies on my tardiness. Not my cup of tea, not what I desire to do. Literally still having issues with my internet, and I have a technician coming on Saturday, mid morning, late morning, early afternoon to hopefully get these issues resolved. Things are just extremely slow, and by the time I get things up and running, there is no way to gauge how slow it's going to be from moment to moment, really. But we are here nonetheless. Of course, we weren't here last week. It was Thanksgiving. My prayer, my hope, and my joy, if this is true, is that you had a good time, not just ate delicious food, but enjoyed whatever you chose to do. I have ceased in the notion that you only had a good time if you spent time with family. No, whatever you chose to do. Some people even had to work. It was the nature of a thing. So if that's what you had to do, I hope it was still an enjoyable time despite having to work. But that's why we weren't here last week, and I'm sure most were able to kind of figure that out, that it was Thanksgiving. This time of year, it's when we do take moments away. But we are here on this evening, and we'll kick off in another minute or so. Don't necessarily intend on being long because speaking of work, have some work to do, and so we won't be before you long. We're going to kind of deal with a subject that's not a subject in most people's thought process, but when I get done, I think you might think a little differently, and hopefully we might be able to, for that one out there who's been wondering about this matter of attraction and all of that, maybe we'll be able to answer a question or two, or at least give you something to think about, something to consider. So, all right. So let's get into this thing, and people will join as they do. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to do a write up. Just a bit of a busy day, but a busy week actually, coming off Thanksgiving and the end of the month. So for what I do for a living, end of the month is always very busy time. That aside. So attraction, and we're not talking about the law of attraction, and I won't comment on that. I know some people are believers in such things, and I'll leave you alone tonight. we probably stand on different sides of the aisle on that law of attraction kind of stuff, but we won't deal with that tonight. All right. Now, attraction in English definitions really fall short a lot of times, and this is probably one of those cases, but we'll work with it. So, attraction is a noun, the act, process, or power of attracting. Kind of falls short because the word is in the definition. The action or power of drawing forth a response, an attractive quality, which is probably where we're going to really camp right there. The action or power of drawing forth a response, an attractive quality. A force acting mutually between property, okay, magnets, okay, so we know about that. Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to, there we go. Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their, listen to these words, desires, and in particular this one, and tastes. I'm going to use a different word than taste, but their desires and tastes. Let me do that again. Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their desires and tastes. Oh, yes. And the desires and tastes. Okay, let's see here. Again, good evening to all. Uh, uh, um, all right, there we go. And then with doing that, that allows me to put it up for my YouTube viewers or watchers. Glad to have you all here this evening. Share this video out. Might be a little fun for some. It might be a little not so fun for others. But we're glad to have you all here. And if you're watching back, glad to have you watching us back. So I wasn't completely sure what I was going to do this on, and then there's so many subjects that run through my mind. Conversations with people spark things, and suffering from or dealing with attention deficit disorder. I'll have a great idea on Sunday afternoon when I am nowhere near in a position to type something out or lay it down. So with my ADD, I'll lose 30 great subjects to talk about that I think are meaningful. But I had a conversation with a dear friend Monday evening, and some of this came up. Now, those of you who watch my broadcast know I've been single for, as of the 23rd of November, 7.5 years. And I've shared transparently about multiple marriages and all those types of things. And so I do get asked the question, as you can imagine, about a lot of things related to dating. And I was going to do maybe dating, and I couldn't pull it together in my head, so I left it alone. But this in particular, after talking to my dear friend, I thought about this and I said, no, let's talk about this. And I was going to be a bit more generic and just deal with attraction in general. But no, I want to go for the jugular. I want to go right for it out the box. Now, look, let me say this. I say it anytime I'm dealing with any type of relationship, marriage, things like that. I am not referring to two women, two men. I'm not referring to man with a man, a woman with a woman. I am a Christian. I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. I love Jesus. I love his word. I preach it going on 30 years, preach and teach it going on 30 years. If that is not your cup of tea, you live in America, you are free to not listen to me. You are absolutely free to not listen to me. Let me be clear. If you do not agree with the Christian doctrine and you do stick around, and you want to fight with me because of my belief system, you're going to lose. It's my page. I'll block you and move on. Like, you can't win on my page arguing with me about my belief system. That makes no sense. And I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth because you want to justify your stance in the. Now, if you report me, I'll get out of Facebook jail and all of that, and I'll be right back here and doing my thing. So, if I find out who you are, I'll just block you and be done. I'm not concerned with cancel culture. I'm not worried about you telling people in the LGBTQ community about me and they come, and I don't scare. I'm almost 50 years old. You're not going to scare me. You're not going to run me off. This is my page. It's called Gabe Matthews for a reason. It's not called General Page. Everybody say what you want. No, it's mine. And my freedom of speech will not be taken away from me because I don't want to discuss the LGBTQ community in a light that you think I should. I'm not. So when I talk about relationships, I'm talking about, in particular, single people. I am talking about men and women. Period. I love you. I love you. But I just want to be clear. So somebody watches this back 10 years from now on YouTube or whatever the case may be, and they have some comments to make, and I get a notification. I'll make, hey, did you watch the first 5 minutes or so? Yes. Okay. So then, like, what are you talking about? Now, that said, it's open for chatting. It's open for communication. Let's talk. Let's chat. So by all means, chat it up. Let's talk. Let's talk to each other. Talk to each other, if you will, in the comment section. but be respectful. And if I see comments back and forth that suggest that you don't quite understand what I just said a moment ago, I can delete those comments. Yes, it's actually possible. What happens online doesn't stay online forever. That's not actually true, despite the fact that people keep saying that. That's not true. So content can be deleted, because if it couldn't, then how could Facebook remove your stuff? How could YouTube and Twitter and all the rest of them remove your stuff? So things can actually be deleted from online. It's actually possible. So that said, you got to put those things out there, because that's just how it goes. Okay. So let's move on into the subject. So what's my point? And I like to get right to it and then work it out. Okay. My point from the jump is that attraction in and of itself is not a controversy. However, the moment you start asking questions about attraction, attractiveness, attracting, then you start moving into a controversy. Now, the word controversy simply means a disagreement, a place of contention. And I'm going to tell you why I believe attraction can be a subject of contention. You ready? I'll get right to it. I'm not going to waste your time. I believe it is because not attraction, but preference. Now, notice I still have the definition up there. What does it say? Something that attracts or is intended to attract, nobody has issue with that, people by appealing to their desires and tastes. Another word for taste is preference. So something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their desires and preferences. Desires we'll talk a little bit about, but I think that one's pretty easy. And taste. Now something, so it didn't say people, or it just said something. So let's work with it in that sense for a moment. Something that attracts or is intended to attract people, which is why I chose that definition. It gets right to the human being. So we can talk about attraction in respects to a car. That car is attractive. Now, you don't use the word attractive because most of us think relationships. But in truth, the word simply means something that is appealing, something that is meant to catch a person's attention favorably on the basis of their desires and their, I'm using my word, preferences. Oh, let me slow it down. Something that's meant to get, so when you watch the car, I'm going to use the car for this moment. When you watch the car commercial, they show you a variety of colors of a particular car, and they show you they talk about some of the basic things about the car, but the truth of the matter is they show you the amenities. They talk about the car sometimes using, excuse my term, anthropomorphisms. In other words, they use words that describe human beings to describe a car, right? So it's elegant, it's curvaceous. Now think about what I'm saying: elegance, curvaceous, on and on to describe a car. Those words are also words used to describe human beings. Why? Because to attract people by appealing to their desires and their tastes or their preferences. But let's get back to human beings. Let's get back to men and women. Now, again, I am a Christian. So I generally believe, and I don't think anyone will argue this that is a Christian, that God is creator and he created human beings to interact with each other. Well, I'm a loner, Gabe. Yeah, but the general consensus is among creation that we are built to interact with each other. If human beings don't interact with each other, nobody exists beyond the first two. Now, I'm not talking about sex, but you don't get to sex necessarily, or definitely not favorably, without an interaction. And in the interaction, that's where we get attraction. Now, put that on a meme, send that out. In the interaction between human beings, we get attraction or attractiveness, or the element of attracting, the ability to attract, the ability to there's something that is appealing about us as individuals to each other. Now I'm using the word something. There's something that is appealing, something that is appealing about individuals between each other. And that's based on what? Desires and preferences. Now, I would dare to suggest that men, you could use the word desires for men and preferences for women, even though I think you could generally divide us along those lines and say, or at least the assumption is men, it's desires. Desires. And for women, it's preferences. Well, no, I've met women and had conversation with women. They have desires for a certain type of man, or for a man to be in their life, relationally speaking. Well, there are men I know who have preferences or tastes, long legs, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to get into that now, or at this point, or maybe not at all. I may stay away completely from the particulars. But the reality of it is, why the controversy? Where do you get the disagreement? Well, nobody disagrees in terms of preferences. And if you live in the country I live in, hey, to each his own. Okay, so Gabe, we haven't gotten a controversy yet. I thought you were going to come to it. Where's the controversy? It's not in the idea of attractiveness or being attracting, because you just said we wouldn't exist if there was no attraction, there was no element of attraction between men and women. Again, no disrespect to the alphabet community, as some call them, but the fact is, there is no man and man interaction physically that produces children. There is no female-female interaction physically that produces children. I am here because I have a biological mother and father. You are here because you have a biological mother and father. So we don't even have to get into a conversation about the alphabet community because they cannot produce children. And I'm telling you what you already know, and that is there is some element of attraction. So I don't want to hear about, but rapes and all. No, we understand those are outliers. We are talking about children that are born to people that had something appealing back and forth. She saw him, he saw her, and there was appeal, even if it was brief. They may not have gotten married. They may not. I'm not here to argue how long their interaction occurred or happened, or you can discuss that amongst yourselves. But the fact is, generally speaking, the average child born is born to a man and a woman who at some point, even briefly, had appealing things based on their desires and tastes. I got to make the case first. I got to lay it down. So where's the controversy? So it's not in attraction, and it's not so much even in desires and tastes, because no one is going to tell me I don't have a right to desire or have a certain preference. I'm not going to tell you you don't have a right to desire or have a certain preference. Let me say it this way so I can get on somebody's nerves, because I don't feel like I've gotten on somebody's nerves yet. So men are all about sex. First of all, that makes no sense. How is a man all about sex and yet he holds down a full-time job? How is he all about sex and yet he's productive in other areas of his life? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Absolutely, positively no sense. Because men, that means includes President of the United States, congressmen. So all they do, they don't make laws, they don't do nothing, they just think about sex all the time. That includes the man who's driving the truck across the country. Who's driving the truck? If he's thinking about sex all the time, he's going to kill somebody, including himself. So the notion that all men are thinking about all the time is sex, and men who say it or shouldn't, why are you saying that, fellas? Why are you allowing that to be the case? Why are you perpetuating that myth, that nonsense, that lie? It just makes no sense. I'm a full-time father. I also have a job. I am thinking about my job and my child And when I'm thinking about my job and my child, I am not thinking about sex. So just thought I'd throw that in. It didn't cost you anything. So where's the controversy? It's not in attraction. It's not in the idea that individuals have desires and tastes or preferences. Here's where I believe the controversy, the disagreement, the dissension lies. It's in the interpretation. I'm going to let it sink in for a minute. It's in the interpretation. What do you mean, Gabe? I'm glad you asked. It's not whether or not I have my own specific desires and preferences, or you have your own, on what I think is appealing, but it's when I take them from here and channel them here. And I'm not going to share mine tonight because of that very idea of what I'm talking about. Because the moment I start saying, see, my preference is, see, it's not contentious, it's not an issue until, let me give you an example. This is one, as a single man, I have been on social sites, but people call them dating sites, and I have read this one. Let's see what you think about this one. I don't date outside of my culture, i.e., I don't date outside of my race. Now, that's a desire, that's a preference. That person who states that, it's not an issue inside their head until you get to the point of interpretation. Now, what do you mean by interpretation? Very simple. Here's the question that creates the contention. Why do you not date outside of your preference or taste? It's not, do you have a right? It's not, do you have preferences? It's not, do you have your own desires? But why? It's the why question. It's the why question that creates the controversy or the tension or the contention or the dissension. That's the question. Now, you may choose not to answer the question, so as far as you're concerned, this conversation is of no consequence to you. Okay, fine. But I have been single 7.5 years, and I have had this conversation many times. And I can assure you, some of those conversations, if not many of them, had portions of them that got very intense when I asked the question, if you don't mind me asking, why? Why? If you don't mind me asking, why do you have that particular preference, that particular taste? Again, not to suggest that they don't have a right to, that they have not given thought to their own taste and desires. But when you get to that point of dealing with why, therein lies the controversy. Therein lies the dissension. Now let me make it even more intense for you, for some who feel like that's not intense enough. Here's another thing to consider. It definitely contentious. Woo. I'm gonna say it. It definitely becomes contentious. Watch this. Watch this. Ready? Let me give you a scenario. So there's a gentleman. Let's say he's 6'3", 6'4", works out regularly, six-pack, well-spoken, and he's got a few female friends. And he's standing there, and he's having a conversation, and this comes up. Maybe a lady walks past, and everybody's got a different feel about what they think they saw him do in terms of looking at her or not looking at her. So somebody is brave enough to ask him, do you like what you see? Basic, I'm just cutting to the chase. Do you like what you see? In other words, do you have desires and preferences for what you see? What did I say the definition is? Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their desires and their taste. Now, if I have a husband and a wife watching me, brother, good luck. I love you, man. And sister, same thing. You're out with your boo. I can make it. You want more intensity? You out with your boo. Now, you're in a relationship. Ladies, gentlemen, you're in a relationship. And somebody is in the grocery store and you're in the grocery store and they walk past, and fellas, I know I'm picking on us, but stay with me. And you see her out of the corner of your eye, and your wife sees you out of the corner of her eye. And she's waiting to see how much you're going to see her. And the issue of attraction, see, attraction is not necessarily the issue, whether the man is attracted or not. It's not even preference and desire. He just likes what he likes. He desires what he desires. But the question is, do you, and if so, why? Now, let's say that his wife is pregnant. So her body has changed. She had to gain some weight, I think at least 25 pounds or something like that. She had to gain some weight. Maybe she's having one of those days where she's bloated. Oh, I've been there. My wife carrying my son, and she's just not feeling herself. And the young lady, or the lady, I don't say young, the lady walks past and who's not pregnant, and she is of a particular, I don't want to get into the particulars, because again, I don't know people's desires and preferences, but she walks past and the man looks. Bless his heart. Maybe a little longer than his wife wanted him to, or his girlfriend, or whatever the case. And she is questioning why. What is it that that woman has that is appealing? See, attraction, that is appealing. Now, nobody knows her personality, not him, not her. They just see her standing there looking at the cabbage or the tomatoes. Nobody knows her. We don't know what her personality is. We don't know. Nobody, he doesn't know. She doesn't know. But he sees her. And he looks for 15 and a half seconds longer than he should have. He turns and he can feel the searing view of his wife piercing his skull as he turns. And she is looking through his soul into the very core of his being as his heart races, not because of the lady, but because he knows the look on his wife's face. Now, they may not have a conversation, but in a previous life, in particular my first and second marriage, I would have been having a conversation. Not that I would have started, but trust me when I tell you, I faced that repeatedly. And so I know this subject a little bit more intimate than maybe most. Didn't matter how long I looked, didn't matter what my desires or tastes were, didn't matter what my preferences were. I looked, she saw me look, and there we were. We were off to the proverbial races. Why? What does she have that I don't have? In other words, translation, what is it about her, presumptuously, based on the fact that you looked, that is more attractive, more appealing to your desires and tastes than what I have? That, my friends, is where the contention, it's where the controversy, it's where the dissension comes. It is in the why. Now, I can flip this easily. Why are you looking at him? Because he's tall? Because of his hair? Why are you looking at him? Because he got out of a Mercedes? Oh, come on, fellas. We're not exempt. We're not exempt. And I'm not saying all men, all women, but we're not exempt. There's some of us fellas who find ourselves in position to ask why. And what is the question why dealing with? Interpretation. It is, I am trying to interpret what I think you consider to be attractive. Get it? And I want to know why, of course, I'm assuming at this point, why you think that what you see or what you hear is appealing. Those desires to your desires and tastes. Let's go at this another way. Have you ever been out on a date or having a phone conversation or whatever the case may be, just talking, and somebody asked you, so what are your tastes? My tastes? Yes. What do you prefer? Let me ask the fellas, have you ever just, for some reason, felt like, that might not be a question I should answer? Have you ever felt that way, fellas? Have you ever said to yourself, for some reason, I just feel like it would be dangerous to answer that question? And if you have, why? I'm asking again. Why? What did you interpret about the one, concerning the one who was asking you the question? Likely a woman. What were you what sense did you get from the manner in which that why was asked? They're just trying to get an interpretation, right? Just innocent. They just want to understand. They just want to get a handle on, and in particular now, I'm gonna get a little bit more tense, especially if you've detected that they like you. If you detect, I'm gonna get in trouble with this, but it's okay. If you detect that they find you to be attractive, I know we don't typically use the word with men, but generally speaking, that you have attributes, you have things about you that are appealing to their desires and tastes. And I'll be honest, when I get that question from the opposite sex, who is single, pretty much usually the case that I know that person is probing to try to see if my preferences, if my desires line up with their perception or their view of themselves. Just, woo. I'm just going to be honest with you. That when I get that question, more often than not, I'm not saying every time, but especially from the opposite sex. So, Gabe, what do you find appealing? What are your preferences? Blink, blink, blink. Innocent, right? Well, in my younger days, in my days of foolishness and lack of wisdom, I answered the question just, oh yeah, I like this and that and the other, Oh, so you wouldn't want to date somebody like this? And of course I got some wisdom, because I realized when they said somebody like this, they weren't describing someone away from them. They were describing them. Do you understand why I call this the attraction controversy? The attraction controversy is the word I use because I just get attention, but the place of contention, because if my preferences don't line up with who they think themselves to be, I'm just telling you what I know. So I'm not so quick to answer the question, not because I don't know what my desires and tastes are, but I like to try to read the room, if you will. I try to get a handle on who I'm talking to and what they're after. I don't necessarily answer the question when it comes to men per se either, but I I pay closer attention than I used to. Why, Gabe? You should feel comfortable with saying what your desires and tastes are. Yeah, and that statement is a setup. That's a setup. That's being said by somebody who's trying to get me to put my foot in my mouth. Why, Gabe? I know you ain't afraid. No, it's not fear, because again, I have a right to my desires and tastes. But let's go ahead and say it. But I don't want you, Gabe, to not desire and have me as a preference. The fact is, the reason why this becomes contentious is because you are potentially going to speak a list of things or give a list of things that might end up flat out rejecting the person who's asking you. Ladies, it happens in reverse, and you know this. Men will ask that question as well, with their chest swollen up with air, because he just knows that you're going to describe him. He just knows you are. You're going to say, I want a man who is this, that, and the third, and you're going to be looking at his picture. You're going to be talking to him. You're going to describe him. And if you give a description that he knows is not consistent with himself, you will get men, just like you get with women, who will, oh man, that hurts. Well, you asked me what my preferences are. You asked me what my desires are in terms of the type of man I would like to be in a relationship with. Ladies, don't be naive. You just described not him. And the reason why this is a subject at all is because we were built to interact with each other. Because Gabe doesn't exist unless Johnny and Patricia interact with each other socially, get engaged, get married, and then along the way, I exist. If at any point their preferences and desires don't line up with each other, at least to the point of marrying, I'm not here, nor is Jonathan, nor is Catherine, nor are you. You got to understand, this is to the point of literal life. People don't exist unless there is attraction between the two parties. Again, we're not talking about the outliers of rape and things of that nature. In the general sense, people do not exist. I'm literally speaking to existence. And we take this for granted. Well, married people in some sense, because once you get married, you just, you're dealing with, I could do a whole broadcast on married people and attraction. Trust me. Because there's issues there. And I gave you an example of the man and the woman in the grocery store. So the reality of it is, this is serious. Now, let's go to I think it's fun stuff, but I get the feeling some are probably not going to like this part. So, Gabe, why do I seem to attract? Hopefully I've answered it now already, but maybe you haven't been listening, so let's try it. Why do I seem to appeal? Why do I seem to attract? You see where I'm going? These kind of men. So let's deal with the two sides of this. One, you being attracted to them is based on what? Let's read the definition. Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their desires and tastes. Now, another way that could be worded is you have something about you that appeals. Not that you're trying to do that, but your basic person, your basic presentation appeals to their desires and tastes. You're not trying to do it, because the way the definition is written is if to say that person or that thing is trying to do it. It suggests that. But ladies in particular who keep asking me, Gabe, why do I keep drawing these? And of course, you ain't talking about a reputable, wonderful guy. You're talking about some guy who you think is beneath you. Yeah, I said it. Who doesn't measure up. I'm going to get to the other side of this in a minute. Who doesn't measure, we'll talk about that. But the fact is, he has his own desires and tastes. So I don't care if he's got the prison tattoo, ... Good evening to you. He's got the prison tattoo, of the teardrops on the side. I don't care if he smokes like a train. I don't care if he's got more piercings than you do and tats everywhere and you don't like that. I don't care if his pants is sagging and he come up to you honey dip and calling you all these names you don't want to be called. Baby girl and queen and all of this. Or you don't mind being called some of that, but you don't want him calling you that. And so I'm tired of getting a question, and I took liberty to answer it right now. I'm going to refer you to this video. The next person that asked me, Dave, why do these men who are not appealing to me, see what I did right there? Who are not appealing or attractive to me are attracted to me because you don't get to, I just said this, you don't dictate people's taste and desires. You don't dictate what they prefer. Their preferences, yeah, I said honey dip, their preferences, their desires have you on their list, allow for you to be on their list. But the other side of this is your preferences, is your desires. Do not include them. So when you say, Gabe, why do these men, because I ain't never had a man say that to me, Gabe, why do these men keep coming at me and what am I giving up? Do I have, what is that one I get? Do I have something written on my forehead? No. Whatever your presentation generally is, those men that you think, I guess, are all in one type, which is kind of rude. But anyway, I want to talk about that now. Those men who are not appealing to you, you're appealing, them being appealing to you ain't got nothing to do with you being appealing to them. And if they're bold enough to come say something, that's why. So let me answer the subsequent question that goes with that. And why are they the only ones that come up to me? Because that's how they are individually. So let me ask the next question that I get right behind that one. Why is it that the ones I am attracted to don't come up? I'm going to get in trouble tonight. Don't come up to me. Because what if you're not... Hot flash, had a hot flash. I'm going to say it. You might not be attractive to them. It ain't because nice guys finish last. I know. Stupid, but anyway. It's just a dumb statement. I get it. Got a whole song. Finish, blah, blah, blah. No. If you are not appealing to them enough to cause them to come to you based on their desires and tastes, that's why they're not doing it. It's not rocket science, people. That's how attraction works. Now, there are some men who might be shy, or whatever the case, and some women who might be ultra shy because of experiences and circumstances and personality. And so, fellas, when you approach, it's not that she don't like you, she's just shy. And you have to work a little bit, and hopefully that won't hurt your little heart. If you got to work a little bit, fellas, you got to work a little bit. And if she's worth it, work a little bit. Don't get rude with her. Oh, you one of them. No, dog. You see? No, man. Come on, homie. No. Peace. Don't do that, man. Don't criticize her because she is shy and she might not be one who's accustomed to men approaching her with aggression. I'm a man. I don't understand that myself. But anyway, be assertive, but be respectful, be kind, be courteous. Well, I got to tell grown men this. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you. Back up, dude. Good Lord. You might have something about you that is appealing, but she's just not of the attitude that she wants you to be all up in her grill. And I've had women tell me that too. Gabe, I'm cool with him, but he came on a little too strong. I've had many women actually tell me that one. Man, he's nice looking, Gabe, but I just can't deal with all that. That was just too much. Maybe if he back up a little bit, and I just feeling bad for the brother. I don't even know who the brother is. I'll be feeling bad for him. He don't get it. Hey, you know, I'm glad you figured it out. So the reality of it is, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. There is no real controversy. Just like you have your taste and desires, ladies, and the gentleman who comes and he doesn't fit your taste and desires, gently, I tell women, hey, gently send him on his way. Now, there are some men who don't take hints, so you might have to be a little bit stronger in your, don't placate him, don't play games with him, don't, take the drink from him, don't do stuff like that. Just we too old for that. Now, if you're a young person, I do have some 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, not too many, on my Facebook page. If you're listening to this and you in that phase, grow out of it. It's just not a good idea. You don't know who you're dealing with. They may take that game a certain way, and we don't want to have that broadcast. I'm not going to talk about that right now. And some 40 and 50-year-olds who are still playing that silly game, let that stuff go. Because you don't want anybody messing around with your emotion. You don't want anybody messing around with you like that. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, the movie Boomerang. That's my go-to. The movie Boomerang. Because that's exactly what he did. Indeed. Be gentle, be kind. Now, if he's pushy or if she's pushy, then just say, hey, look, I told you, we're done here. Move on. Oh, you like that? Don't even turn and respond. You all don't keep talking, because that person could actually have an issue like narcissism. See, so let me just say that as a cautionary tale. They could be a narcissist. They don't like losing. And approaching women, in particular, men tend to be narcissists statistically more than women. So if they don't like losing, it ain't even about a relationship. It's about winning. And you gently turning them down is like losing. So they keep coming because they. So I didn't mean to get into that, but let me just finish that up. So you identify narcissistic kind of disposition, let that go, unless that's appealing to you. If that's appealing to you, that's your desires, I still say leave it alone, but hey, go for it, do your thing. But I don't recommend it, okay? Now back to the subject. So it's possible that some of the type of gentlemen are just shy ladies, and it's also possible that those types of gentlemen, which no one knows just by looking at, by the way, may not consider you, they don't even know you, by the way, they just see you, they may not like what they see. There may not be something coming from you that they consider to be appealing. Last one is, it may be they think you're out of their league. Now, I'm not talking about that tonight, but they may have desire for you and taste, but you are above their preferences. I know that sounds crazy, and some of you ladies don't like that, but I'm telling you what I know. And so they're not going to venture out to get rejected. They already assume they're going to be, well, Gabe, no, you can tell me that you don't think that they should assume that it can. Well, look, man, we all feel that way. Some of us don't put in for certain jobs that are appealing. See, I told you attraction is not just about men and women. No, you like a certain job, but you don't feel like your resume is going to line up. You're not going to put in for that job unless somebody be like, look, man, just put in for the job anyway. Put in for the job. You got to tell them to do it, because they won't do it because they don't think they're going to be attractive enough. Oh, I love it. Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their desires and tastes. That word is not relational in and of itself, but obviously we use it for a relationship between men and women. So it's quite possible that you might be out of the person's preference. They may have a desire. I'm not going to get into that tonight because I have a bit of an audience in his room. I could. There may be physical elements on your physique that is appealing or desirous, but beyond that, he doesn't, you may not fit his preference. Beyond that, I'm gonna say this respectfully. I don't mind. I'm gonna try to work on this a little bit. I'm a fan. How do I say this? I'm not saying that I'm not for the more athletic or smaller, petite type. Married somebody like that, so I can't say that. However, I also have an affinity for more curvaceous. Leave it right there. Leaning towards plus size. Leaning. I'll leave it right there. So that's something that's a preference for me. Okay. Now I told you I ain't gonna get into it. So, but the reality of it is an affinity. There you go, affinity. Now again, I'm not beyond speaking to a slender woman. I'm not beyond that. My first wife was teeny. Really, she ran track in college. I mean, that's how small she was. She was an athlete. But others I married were not as small. Did I say that? Is that good? Is that okay? So the reality of it is not as small, and love them just as much. It wasn't any more love or less love. See, I'm not even talking about love. The word desire and love sometimes gets convoluted together. Oh, you love that. No, you mean desire? You really mean desire that. But it's like we don't want to say desire because that seems frivolous, so we don't want to say it. No, you're not talking about love in the sense of adoration. No, you're talking about desire. So is that what you desire? Which is, again, speaking to preference. Again, nobody has a problem with the idea of attraction. Nobody has a problem with the idea of differing tastes and desires. It's at the point when you ask the interpretive question of, why do you prefer this above that? Why? Now, am I suggesting, therefore, don't answer that question? No. You can answer the question if you feel comfortable. I definitely don't recommend you just answer the question if you don't feel comfortable, because that's the place where you might find some disagreement. Now, I would wonder why people disagree. That's an odd thing to me. So, Gabe, you have a right to your preference. Yes. Okay, this is my preference. Well, I disagree. Well, why you can't like skinny women? Women so skinny you can see right through them. Obviously, there's nobody that exists like that. But why do you don't like skinny women, Gabe? I don't understand. Okay, why are you going off? And then while you're talking, you were admitting that I have a right to my preference, and yet you're still not happy, but you asked me the question. Why we got to be contentious? Why we got to be fussing about it? I don't want to fuss about this. I like what I like. You like what you like. It is what it is. So why contention? Again, I firmly believe, and I want to go over this just in case you missed it, it's because that person who is being contentious is not happy with your list because they are not on that list. Now, by me saying plus size, I probably have some friends on Facebook who are not plus size, who might think about contacting me. All right, I'm ready for your DMs. And Gabe, why? Well, I already answered the question why, but you don't like my answer. It's because you just like this, that, and the other. And look, let me get in a little bit more trouble. My time is up. Let me get some more trouble. Let me go back to my first example, which is I saw on the social media sites, on the dating sites, people say, I want to date in my own culture. I have a problem with people then assuming the person is racist. The idea is to date someone that you want to be in a relationship with. So if a person feels like they would be more comfortable with someone, and I don't even ask, but yeah, I've seen it on black and white, so I'm not going to isolate on either one. So is the black person racist? Is that bigotry? I think we got to get over ourselves a little bit. And maybe I'm a little old school, but I think there's a point when we need to really close this up, zip it up, and if we got a lock, throw away the key. We got to stop with this nonsense. And the person could be a bigot. The person could be prejudiced. The person could be racist. But when it comes to their love life, when it comes to their love interest, if their desire, if their preference is someone who looks like them, I think that's where we got to fall back on this judgment. Well, brother, you looking at the white girl, the white woman, and you prefer her, you think she looks good, and she says, thank you, but I prefer to be with a white gentleman, and now you going off on her. Well, first of all, you making us all look bad. Hey, man, chill. Because we don't get down like that, man. What are you doing? She has a right to say, I prefer not to date a man outside of my race. I won't even say black. A man outside of my race. Just like I have a right to say maybe plus size as opposed to, see? When it comes to desires and preferences, when we're talking about attraction, how are you going to call people names, racist and prejudice and all of this kind of thing? Let me get in trouble some more. I'm all in my bag tonight. I prefer a man, because I don't have conversations like this with men. So women have told me, Gabe, I prefer a man with his own car, with his own place to live, and making a certain amount of money. Now, in my younger days, I might have felt a certain kind of way because I didn't have that money. I still don't. Because they definitely not describing my bank account. I know that's more transparent than you want me to be, but you know me. That's what I do. They're not describing my bank account. They're definitely not describing my car or my house. Now, I am very comfortable in my own skin, in the car, not so much. I'm just driving it. But I am comfortable in my house. My bank account is what it is. I'm trying to make it a little bit better, but it is what it is at the moment. But I don't have a problem anymore. Because I have grown, I have matured. Yeah, I'm telling you, we need to get over it. Well, she's just a gold digger because she don't want a man who is making below poverty. Maybe she's had some struggles in her life. How about you ask her some questions, fellas, and find out where she's been? Maybe she felt like when she was married and poor, that poverty and money played its hand in some of the struggles or many of the struggles or all the struggles that they had. Maybe it's not, but that's just where she is. And so she set a preference for her that she preferred. Now, I know there are gold diggers. I understand that. But we can't say that every woman who says, I have a preference that the man have certain items that indicate he is not living with his mama. Nothing wrong with that. If you have to do it, I've done it. I've talked about that openly. And typically, if I'm living with my mama, I am not trying to typically get into some kind of relationship. Typically. Yeah, she's got standards. Preferences is really another word for that. Preference standards. And the same thing going the other way. I know men. And you can watch YouTubers and bloggers and all this stuff say some of the same things. I want a woman who is industrious, i.e. working. Some men prefer a woman who has her own business. Oh, that's just because he just want to drive her car and sleep. Hey, you have bad experiences. Let me do this real quick. You need counseling. If you decided that a man saying or a woman saying, I want a man who has reached a certain plateau by 50, 45, 35, which is not unrealistic. It's amazing to me. It's not unrealistic for that to be. So, a 60-year-old, 65-year-old, and she's got some brother. I say brother, but she's got some man who's talking to her, meets her at a place, a social place, buys her a drink. She's like, oh, he's nice, he's cool. As they're talking, she's ready to retire and do her thing and enjoy her life. And this dude is talking about 8, 9 different business ventures, and he ain't been successful at one of them. Girl, leave that girl. Woman, leave that man alone. Well, he's nice, Gabe, and I don't want to pass up a good opportunity. Hey, that's you. If that's your desire, that's your preference. You do you, boo. But you 65, ready to retire and travel, and you got a brother who is looking really for a hand, no disrespect, but he's looking for a handout, and he's up in his 60s, and not only is he not ready to retire, he's still trying to launch a business. Now, hey, man, if you got the aspiration to launch a business at 65, launch your business. But what business do you have of trying to get into a relationship with someone who is financially stable, has put in the work for 30 and 40 years, and you trying to get in on her pension, her 401k? Yeah, I said it. Come talk to me. And vice versa. And vice versa. That dude put in the years, he's comfortable, and you show up and you raising your grandkids, which is nothing wrong with doing that, but you ain't got a whole lot more going on than that. You a stay-at-home grandma, you a stay-at-home mom, whatever the case may be, and you basically surviving off a combination of government assistance and all that, and this man is driving a Lexus. With all due respect, you ain't got to like me, but you got to listen. With all due respect. Now, if he comes to approach you, you tell him what your situation is, and he say, oh, I got you, boo. Hey, you just won the lottery. Do your thing. And you may not even be a money-hungry person. I get it. But if he's willing to put it up and do it because he sees the quality in you beyond your economic situation, maybe you fell on some hard times, I get it. Do your thing. But in general, you have no right to demand that somebody come and rescue you from your economic. Look, I am poor by definition. Not poor technically, but I'm poor by definition. I am not looking for a woman to rescue me from my economic situation. I said it. I said it out loud, fellas. And I know men who do it. I know women who have had men come take over their bank accounts, take over their cars, and won't even deal with them relationally. You understand what I'm saying? When I say relationally. They start out real good, whining and dining, and I know women in their 60s who tell me that this stuff happens. Now, part of that is their fault because they had things about the man that was appealing, but they did not hold to that, what's that word I see, standards? To their preferences? Or maybe they didn't even have the right preferences or whatever, they didn't have preferences that would help them to avoid those things. I don't know. That's a whole other broadcast. But I just want to be clear. And I know that's not going to be liked by many. I get it. I do care. That's why I do these broadcasts. But I don't care that I uncovered some thought in your mind that you hoped no one would ever say out loud. That's what I do on Thursdays. I don't know if you know that. I say this stuff out loud. And I call attention to it. I ain't saying nobody's name on nothing. I call attention to it so that somebody can hear me and start thinking about, where do I stand in this as a single man, as a single woman, and when I'm engaging socially and a man is talking to me and he's showing interest, which means he's attracted to me. He's showing interest because he's attracted to me, which means, quite frankly, the definition never went down. There is apparently something about me that is appealing to his desires and his taste. Now, you could try to play naive if you want to, but I think I've done my job in making it abundantly clear that's the issue. Now, you might want to ask him, hey, what, if you don't mind me asking, what is it appealing about me? What is it that you like about me? And maybe he'll tell you. Hopefully he'll tell you the truth if he does. He doesn't have to. But clearly, if you just kind of, and he keeps talking, well, hey, man, excuse me, sir. I notice you're still talking, and that's fine. But if you don't mind me asking, what is appealing about me? What caused you to walk over? What was it about you that attracted me to you? And I would even suggest if you find one of those those men, ladies, that, are not really your preference, but they're nice enough to answer, they're gentlemen at least, even though they may not have the presentation, ask them. I have given that advice before. Ask them, hey, excuse me. And I'm not saying I'm interested, but I want to you don't mind me asking, what is it about my presentation or that you saw that made you come over and want to talk with me? Now, that they may not be ready for that. They may say something that you may not want to hear. That's why people won't, take the advice a lot of times. But look, it'll give you a better answer or better understanding about what's appealing to others about you. It's not necessarily something you can change. You can't dictate who you are attractive to, nor can I, including those from the LGBTQ community, including them. I can't determine if a man who prefers to be in a relationship with men is attracted to me. In fact, I've talked about this openly, and I'm done. I know for a fact, because I've had men give me compliments in a way that is not customary between men. And I didn't go off on them. I said, thank you, and I went on about my business. I could actually be cordial and respectful, even though that's not my preference. It's possible, believe it or not. So I did this because I wanted to lay out that controversy. I'm absolutely misunderstood. I am about that. You asked the question because if nothing else, it gives you a better insight. Because I try to avoid it. Okay, there's one thing I try to avoid. The reality of it is, some of you are single and you don't want to be. I get in trouble, man. I know I do, but it's okay. I'm tough enough to handle it. There is an answer in this broadcast for you. Did you hear it? If you didn't, let me give it to you. Part of the reason why you may be single, this won't be everybody, is because your preferences change like the wind. They're not nailed down. They're all over the place. Maybe because of fear, you're afraid to be consistent. You're afraid to be consistent in your preferences. Let me use the word my dear friend is using, standard. So your preferences are all over the place. You have a desire to be in a relationship with a man, but your preferences, you telling your friend girl this, and then she see you dating or communicating exclusively with somebody that doesn't line up with what you told her 2 weeks ago. Girl, we done got serious. Girl, come here. Didn't you tell me that you didn't want somebody that smoked? Didn't you tell me you didn't want somebody that's been to prison? Now, I actually had this conversation I shared, I think, probably a couple of weeks ago. Didn't you tell me? And the dude had the tattoos, the whole thing. And I'm talking to two sisters on not intercom, but speaker. And I was traveling somewhere when I lived in Texas years ago now. Time flies, I tell you. And so the one I was friends with put me on speakerphone with her sister, and wanted me to speak to, and I did tell her sister, well, I told them both, you do want to maintain your preferences. Now, if you feel like your preferences are unrealistic, that's for you to work out. And I encourage you to work them out before you try to date exclusively. Gabe, how do I work them out? I'm glad you asked. You work them out by engaging socially with the very sex that you want to be in a relationship with. You want to have conversations as a woman with men, not romantic. You don't have to be romantic with them, but you want to have conversations. You want to get to know them past their form, past their physicality. Okay, tall, dark, and handsome. But wait a minute. Have you had conversations enough with men who might have the physical description you're looking for, but you guys are not in a relationship, so they can talk and you can begin to start developing a better understanding of the mentality? See, I've kept it very surface, but the fact is, I know women who are on my Facebook page right now, and clearly not going to say any names, who have dated tall, dark, and handsome, and married tall, dark, and handsome, and now are torn because they still want tall, dark, and handsome, but they're scared because tall, dark, and handsome abused them, because tall, dark, and handsome cheated, because tall, dark, and handsome abandoned them, because tall, dark, and handsome lied to them. But they still have their preference for tall, dark, and handsome, which is fine. Remember, your preferences is fine. But they go all up and down. Gabe, I don't want to date somebody short. And they got short men talking to them. And I've even had some. Gabe, really? I've had a lot of conversations. Trust me. Okay, he's nice. He's sweet. He took me out. He did everything that I want a man to do. But Gabe, I want a man who's tall. And why is it? See, I don't get men who are tall. I want a man who's tall. I'm already short. I don't want a short man, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hey, those are your preferences. I would think that when you're talking about a relationship, you would want to go with the one that's going to treat you the best, even though they may not have the right number of inches up here. You know, they're not as tall as you want them to be. But if they treat you well, you might want, yeah, you're right, see? And then next thing you know, they were dating somebody who was tall. And I'm not saying that every one of those situations didn't work out, but unfortunately, many of them didn't. I'm not calling anybody's name. I'm not calling anybody's name. I would not do that. But the fact is, tall, dark, and handsome. Now, I'm not dark. And even again, what do you mean by dark? See, I could keep going. What do you mean by dark? What do you mean by handsome? Those are subjective. And that's another issue. That's a whole other broadcast by itself. When you get into preferences and you lay out all these preferences that you think are so specific, but the fact is nobody can figure out what you mean because they are too subjective. And people are trying to measure themselves against people's preferences. Let me tell you a little bit about Gabe, and I got to go because I got work to do. I am not measuring myself by people's preferences. Have your preferences. Have your standards. Have your taste. But Gabe is not measuring himself by other people's preferences. So if I am not tall enough, dark enough, handsome enough, I don't care enough to even tell you. I don't. I could care less. I have my reasons, but I could care less. I am too comfortable in my own skin. I'm too old to be trying to, okay, she seems appealing. Now let me see what her preferences are and then get my list out of myself. And then, okay, yeah, I got that one. Okay, I got that one. Okay, I got that one. Am I good now? You know, heck, at this point, can we go out on a date now? Well, sorry, Gabe, but you don't have these. Oh, I didn't tell you these? Oh, I'm sorry. But you don't have this one, this one, this one. I mean, look, I've talked to women who, hey, they don't want a man my age to have a child who is not grown. Well, I have a child who's not grown, 13 years old, over there in his room. That ain't going to change till he's 14. And then that won't change till he turns 15. You see what I'm doing? You see where I'm going with this? It just is what it is. And I've come across several in my years of being single who didn't know I had a child and said to me, yeah, at my age and I want to travel and do my thing. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I hope you find somebody in that space. And they're like, oh, that's not you? I said, no, my son is 7. My son is 6. My son is, 9 or 12 or whatever. My son is still in the house. Oh, he is? I know men who don't want to date a woman with you. I mean, I can see if I get into preferences, I'd be here all night. And all those preferences are good. There are men who prefer to date somebody with children because they figure she's going to be at home. Yeah, I said it. I'm not saying that's me. That's just what I've heard. They prefer to date a woman who has kids because the woman is at home. More than likely, she ain't out there in the club. Now, it's likely that that man dealt with a woman who didn't have kids, who was out there in the club. And, it didn't go well. So now he assumes, he makes it a preference that she's got to have kids because he figures that's the surefire way she'll be at home. Trust me, that I could get into preferences and be here till the end of time. The reality of it is, whatever your preferences are, men and women, work through that. Now, I'm not saying you can't change one. I'm not saying you got to be rigid, but I'm saying think about it. If you think you're ready for a relationship, but your preferences are all over the place, Gabe, I just want a good man. I just want a good woman. Let me ask a question. What the world does that mean? What does it mean? You just want a good man. Can you define that? Can you put some meat on that bone? Them some naked bones, a skeleton. Put some meat on it. A good man to me, Gabe, is. A good man to me, sir, is this. A good woman. I just want a good woman, Gabe. What does that mean? What does that mean? A good woman to me, Gabe, is this. Okay, while you laying out your preferences, cool. Final question. Do you meet your own preferences? That's a whole other broadcast. I just thought I'd just lay it out there just to get your brain turning over. Do you meet your own preferences? Do you got a list of preferences that you can't even measure up to? Those preferences are unrealistic. Those standards, that taste is unrealistic. I want a man who can buy me Cristal and I can't even afford to buy a bottle of water. Your preferences is beyond you. See what I did there? I want a man driving a Mercedes and I'm riding on the public bus because I think I deserve. Your preferences is beyond you. Your preferences is beyond you. So do you even match your own preferences? Now, I'm not saying you got to be tall because he's tall and you're short. No, I'm not saying that. But are you going to be okay with him having a height preference too? See what I'm saying? That's what I mean by matching. So he has a height preference just like you do. And are you comfortable with him having a height preference? Well, she has an economic preference, and ladies, are you comfortable with him having an economic preference? You can't get mad at him, but I'm not no gold digger. Well, I'm not rich. Well, I didn't say you have to be rich, and I didn't say you have to be a gold digger. See? Contention, I told you. I told you. I know y'all said controversy. This ain't no controversy. Attraction ain't no. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And that's why we're single. Well, not me, but that's why many of you are single, because you don't understand the controversy of attraction, because you don't understand the question why when it comes to preference. You haven't dealt with yourself in respects to why you have the preferences that you have. You've just got preferences and you haven't really nailed down why you have them and the desires you have. Well, desires are kind of obvious. And so you're all over the place. And your whole family looking at you like, well, who you like now? Like, we can't figure out mama, daddy, or auntie. What you doing? You're like, who you dating? Well, I thought you didn't want this, that, and oh, people change their minds. Yeah, but you change your mind like people change drawers every day. We can't keep track of you, So anyway, That's my spiel. I'm sticking with it. Share this out. Get it in front of as many people as you can. A little bit of a lighter subject, though I did have some intense things. But I think this might unravel some mysteries for some people. It ain't gonna hit everybody the same, but I promise you, if you so happen to be single and you're starting to think about getting into a relationship, or you've been struggling to get into a relationship and you keep questioning why I can't seem to work through this and move through this, there's a lot of factors, but I dealt with one. I think one very specific factor, and that's attraction in itself, and the controversy of preference and why I have those preferences. Why is it that I absolutely won't date outside of my culture? And I'm therefore willing to cut off entire populations because I only want to date dot, 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 dot. Why is it that I only have to date somebody a certain height or a height and above? Why is it that I have to date somebody that is of this economic space? Why I have to date somebody from this particular city? Why do I have to date somebody who works in this particular industry? I mean, people get real specific. At least ask yourself. At least put yourself to the question. Engage yourself so that you don't have to engage others. So that when you're asked the question and you answer with simplicity. Just because, well, okay, if that's what you want to say. But the fact is, you should be able to answer with, well, actually, the reason why my preferences are what it is because this. Maybe I have experiences, this, and it's really caused me to see. I would hope you at some point will be able to say, because I'm informed. I'm informed. The reason why my preferences are the way they are is because I'm informed. I've done a little bit of research. I've looked at statistics. I've done more than just feel my way through this attraction thing, because attraction in itself, pure attraction, is hard to navigate and can actually be dangerous. But your mind goes loopy sometimes. It just does. So take yourself through. When I say do research, ask questions, engage people of the opposite sex. I've said this before. Engage people of the opposite sex. Conversate. Talk. I trust you, man. Let me ask you something. Like, we're attracted to each other, right? Well, yeah. Well, can I ask you something? Why are you attracted to me? What is it about me? It may not be the most articulate person, okay? I get it. But maybe they can say, well, I like your shape. Now, don't get mad. You ask the question. Okay, well, is there anything else about me? So there are men out there who like the way I'm built. Yeah. And you might be sitting there going, I hate the way I'm built. But he's like, no, I actually like the way you're built. I think you're put together nicely. Or he may say it another way. And take that. Okay, well, okay. So there are men out there who like the way I'm shaped. There are women who like the way I'm built. Okay. Is there anything else? Well, I think you're funny. Really? What kind of things do I say make you laugh? Well, this is okay. So there are. I can be humorous. Okay. Then you start building your little research. You see, because a lot of this is subjective anyway. So you're not going to find articles. You're not going to find peer-reviewed articles from so-and-so edu.edu necessarily. I mean, you can, but so do a little research. Have some conversation. I've been single for a long time, and I engage in these conversations because I try to help my female acquaintances and friends, particularly the ones who want to be in relationships. I've helped a few. I mean, I've helped a few along the way because we've had these conversations, and I've been able to say, well, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? These are things about you that I've learned from talking to you that you may want to consider, good or bad, up or down. That's your business. And typically those conversations have gone. There's been a couple of them who, not so well, but usually those conversations go pretty well. And I get the feeling my brother has done this. I know my brother from another mother, Mr. McGee, has done it, if he so happens to be watching, because him and I have talked about, him sharing with, hey, this. And it's not their right or wrong. It's just their taste. It's just their preference. And then they're giving you insight to why they think the way they think. And I think that information can be valuable, especially if you want to present more of yourself that is appealing without being, outlandish, more of yourself that is appealing. All right, so that's it. I got to remember to say, if you have a subject that you would like me to consider discussing, more than happy to ponder over it. If I feel like there's something I can work with, I can do something with it, then I'll present it. I have no problem with presenting. If I feel like I'm not equipped to deal with it, then I'll let you know. I don't feel like I'm capable of dealing with it, because that's pretty much the reason why. Or maybe it's a little bit too controversial, even for me, which is saying something. Trust me. But anyway, have a great evening. Have a great weekend. Until next week.